Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare. Sadguru Maharaj ki Jnana Vairagya Sampurnan Hari Bhakti Parayanan Purva Acharyanaham Vande Sampradaya Pravartakan. Hare Rameti Krishneti Nama Sankirtanam Sada Lokakshemaya Kurvantam Premikam Sadgurum Bhaje. Kalaye Sundarakaram Sadeika Priyadarshanam Ajnananashakam Devam Sadgurum Muralidharam Murali Mandita Karakamalam Munijanamohanam Vyatyasta Padam Manamala Dharinam Prema Bhakta Mandala Nitya Kirtitam Premika Varadam Ashraye. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarva Papa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukkha Shamanaha Tannamami Harim Param. Sadguru Maharaj ki Jai. With the immense grace of our beloved Guru Maharaj, Maharanyam Sri Muralidhara Swamiji, and by the grace of Sri Madhuri Sakhi Sameta Premika Varada Thakurji, every Saturday almost we are chatting about our Sanatana Dharma, basically targeting middle schoolers and above and parents, so that we get a better understanding, little more better understanding, hopefully, of our Sanatana Dharma, the greatness, the depth, the width, and its sweetness also. And the various practices which are simple yet profound. At the surface, it looks very simple, but behind every activity in Sanatana Dharma, there is a very deep, profound, I wouldn't say the word reason alone, there is a profound system or an ecological system behind it. That includes worship also. That includes psychology. That includes science. And the beauty with Sanatana Dharma is it tried to approach life in a very integrated way. Not to separate science or cosmology or my own personal enhancement or my own self-actualization, which means finding my own roots, finding my own identity, finding happiness in life. It integrated all of it together, which at times becomes a very difficult thing to grasp because we tend to go towards specialization and try to sort of shade out other stuff and hold on to one particular branch. And slowly I see that the science, engineering, technology, medicine, all of them are slowly coming towards more towards synthesis of cross-disciplinary approach to understand things better. And they are now taking things like integrated medicine more seriously than trying to say this is the way, that is not. And we see that the age is ripe for the world to see the methodology, see the approach and perspective of Sanatana Dharma. Because right now, the way in which great minds are thinking all around the earth is pretty much in line with what our Sanatana Dharma always was, and what Sanatana Dharma is, and what Sanatana Dharma always will be, which is very integrative, which is very holistic in whether it is science or cosmology or my personal social life or my spiritual life. It had always shown an integrated approach. And whether a worship is no exception to that. So when we say Sanatana Dharma, since we are chatting as family, right? So let me quickly show you what does this Hinduism really talk about. Actually, any religion has to talk about only three things, okay? The three things religion has to talk about is first is it has to explain what is the world. Let me go back. Let me go back so that I don't miss that slide. Here. Okay. It has to first explain what is the world. Okay. Right? World, universe, all that. And religion also, at least Sanatana Dharma, explains something very interesting, an observer of this world apart from the world. I'll tell you what it is. And then something called God. You see, all the three. So religion does not just talk about God. In fact, it talks about how do we find excellence in our life? How do you find fulfillment in your life? Religion is all encompassing. And these two are what is called as the spiritual aspects of religion, where I want to understand me. I wouldn't say observer. It sounds a little more, somber. Let me put me. Okay, I. And so we have these three things, which Sanatana Dharma explains with eclat and elan. It talks about the world, it talks about me, and it talks about God, and the relationship between these three. Okay, so that's what it does, and it does it in a very beautiful, integrated approach. And within Sanatana Dharma, we have many schools of thoughts. You see, and right now you have what do you call physicalism, or what do you call scientific thought, isn't it? At times, scientific thought can also become what is called as a scientism, where people become very dogmatic about science, when the whole point of science is not to become dogmatic. So many of the experiences of people which cannot be explained with current models are at times even rejected outright by even well-meaning great scientists, people who are very famous also. And that is because at times science is beautiful, isn't it? When something is beautiful and grand, people tend to become a little fiercely protective about it. And at times when you're fiercely protective about your child, it hinders the growth of the child, isn't it? Science is no exception to that. When we are seriously very protective about it, where we don't want to give up something or we don't want to expand, at times it stifles the growth. But we find the current age of people in both academia and as researching scientists and all that stuff, they are pretty much open nowadays to understand all the three now. So when you say, you must have heard about these things called theory of everything. If you say theory of everything, obviously it has to include not only just the world, but it has to include me also in the theory of everything, isn't it? And if it includes me, it should also include my waking state, dreaming state, and sleep state also. If you say I'm going to explain theory of everything only with my waking state, then it's not everything, because I exist in three states. I sleep, I dream, I'm awake also. And this world which I see right now is visible to me in my waking state. If you explain that, I will say theory of everything when I'm awake. No, that doesn't make a nice topic. No? But then theory of everything technically should include all aspects of me, all aspects of world, and modeled in one grand way, you see. And people are coming towards that. As we were discussing last week, they are now seriously taking consciousness studies. And in fact, in some of the universities, there is something called DOPS, Department of Perceptual Studies. You see, where instead of just looking at objective phenomena, which is the major part of the universe, they are also looking at the various perceptions and subjective phenomena. And those are very interesting cases. And instead of trying to reduce them to the existing model and fit them into science, they're seriously opening their mind to see, can I try to find out if I need to probe more to understand some things which I can't understand? You see, where I seek to unravel things which is not within my current understanding. So world is moving towards a beautiful place, scientific community. And Sanatana Dharma has a lot to offer. And here, when we say world, me, and of course God, isn't it? So all the three together, world, me, and God. And a religion has to explain all these three and the relationship between these three. Sanatana Dharma also does that. And here, Sanatana Dharma very beautifully separates this world and then bunches these two together as conscious stuff and non-conscious stuff, right? So that which has, can I use the word life? That which is conscious, you see, is separate. And that which is related to that which is conscious, but actually it is, we use the word insentient. Like this table is not conscious, okay? It is insentient. So the greatest categorization done for theory of everything is just two entities, conscious and non-conscious. And Sanatana Dharma went to go one step further to say, if you want the grandest theory of everything, consciousness, finish. It's because that which is unconscious or non-conscious cannot exist independently without a conscious entity observing it or supporting it. A table does not know it exists. Neither can the table know whether it exists or other things exist. See, only reason why table exists because I see it and I give it that reality. It does not have an inherent reality, which is what is called non-conscious. So our Sanatana Dharma, very radical thinking, made theory of everything very obvious is consciousness. So if some point of time consciousness studies and theory of everything merge somewhere, there is a good chance that they may hit something worthwhile, which is sustainable. If they are not touching consciousness as a grandest state of existence, then they still have a lot of ground to cover as per Sanatana. Okay. And last time we understood this by this simple model of our own body. Remember the 3 cups? Let me quickly take you through and also tell you some interesting phenomena which are being researched now, which greatly supports this. And I also tell where they are still struggling with, because I've been listening to some of the top researchers' studies, etc. And they are now slowly getting people from various faiths, mystical traditions, bhakti traditions, yoga traditions, siddha traditions, to understand reality better. Now they are slowly coming here, seeking help, which is what science should actually do, isn't it? Be open to all sorts of inputs so that it can, at its best, unravel the truth. Let's see what we did last time. We talked about who am I, me, the self. And then we said there is God and there is the world of all these things. And of course, there is this world which is, we call insentient, etc. All the living beings, the world, me, and then somebody above who's called God. And I still don't know what God is. And I will come to that. Okay. And then we said this I, which is myself, is heavily clad with 3 layers. Pretty cold, isn't it? So the first layer is what we call as the jacket. And then you had an undershirt, the outer coat of physical body. That is the beauty. Even if you think a little bit, this physical body is not taken as conscious. There is consciousness in this physical body, which makes the body appear conscious. Because imagine during that very, sad event of somebody about to give up their body, for a second before and after, the body was exactly the same. Some functions stopped totally. So the physical body remained, but something passed on. So we have this outermost coat of physical body, and then we said, this is the inner coat. Remember this? These 3, right? This is the physical body. And this is my, can I use the word mental body, which includes all my senses of perception, all that which is inside this body, which does the software, you see, input, process, output instructions. And it is actually done by the outer coat of the body. I think it's called, you have an input, output, and a processor. You have a processor. So let me use this software side of this body as what we call as the inner shirt of the body. Obviously, a machine works because there is a software there. The moment either remotely or by some means I remove the software from the machine, it is merely a dead matter. So let us take the software side of it as the inner shirt of the astral body. And the software is distinct from this hardware. And the software is the one which perceives. And we said there are 5 organs of perception. Okay, my eyes, nose, tongue, touch, and ears. So I These are the 5 sensations I have in this world, right? Everything I perceive in this world is through the 5 channels. And my inner shirt of the astral body uses a physical ear with a small canal and a tympanum, or whatever you call it, to get the signals of the sound. And the inner software is the one which collects the signal inside. And then there are 5 organs. Generally, there are many organs, but we bunch it as to major 5 categories of the physical movement and all that stuff: speech, walking, working, etc. And digestive system and the procreating system. 5 systems. So these are the orders given to this, and the perception takes the perceptions from eyes, nose, etc. You see, and all this is processed in this shirt. So call it as, what do you call it? CPU, yeah? With all the input and output. Okay, it's a very simple input out. In fact, computers are modeled on this one. And so I have a CPU which does various functions. CPU may have some regions. So my thinking region is there, then analyzing region is there, and finally decision loop is there. And all this is done by my inner CPU, which is what I call as the inner shirt, because obviously software is always embedded inside. And it's an embedded software, which is embedded. And of course, this is an artificial intelligence. This is the real intelligence software. So instead of using this to explain that, I'm doing the reverse here. And then there is this real me, and let me call it as something deep inside, the causal body and consciousness. And we talked about it. That's the deepest here. And how do we actually know? Why should we model? It's not random model. It actually is modeled out of my 3 states of experiences. This lives in the physical world, when I'm living in the physical world, when I'm actually doing the thinking and analyzing and all these stuff I'm doing in this level of my body. And then there is this third one. Let us leave it that's just like that, because we may be a little new to this. Okay. And now we said, this is the beauty. When we are in the waking state, we are in all the 3 codes together. When we are awake, we have this physical body. We see, I am this body. It's beautiful. And then we are also having the mental or the astral part of me working. And of course, there is something deep inside which powers these 2, and I call it causal body. Leave it just like that there. And then we said, while we are dreaming, what happens is, this actually does some job within the scope of this. Suddenly it doesn't. But when I am dreaming, I don't know about my physical hands, physical feet, etc. But I do everything almost. Why almost? Everything. All that I do when I'm awake, I'm able to perceive all that, experience all that when I am dreaming. That's interesting, isn't it? Have you ever wondered, when my eyes are closed, I'm seeing something in my dream? And the seeing is not semantics. That's an experience. You saw. I saw you in my dream. Semantics. No, I saw you. You are having that long hair, you are wearing the blue shirt and all that we say. Nah? So then seeing is not just this then. There is something here which does the seeing, because my eyes are closed and I'm seeing. So obviously the function of seeing is not my outer coat alone. It actually is the function of the inner shirt. You get this? And when I'm dreaming, the outer coat is not active, right? Obviously my eyes are closed. And my seeing, I smell also. When I'm dreaming, I smell. All these sense organs. In a mental state, I'm able to see. Mentally, I'm seeing. Mentally, I'm walking. Mentally, I'm doing. Mentally, I'm doing all the stuff which I do physically. In fact, there are some very interesting brain scan case studies where they say almost physical and imagined experiences almost has the same brain activity in your head, you see. And that was a very significant find. You see, almost. If you can very clearly imagine a rose with your eyes closed, whatever you perceive as a rose with your eyes open and see, the same areas of your brain are activated if you can imagine a rose with all its wonderful details. If you are a very great imaginer of even the smell, touch, etc., you will have the same experience. You see? And that's the beauty of this inner shirt. And then you have the coat, which does the actual, outer coat. That's what it's called, coat, outermost. And then you are in a deep sleep state where suddenly my shirt is silent, my body is still. I am in that state of happiness. When I wake up, I feel very happy, I slept well. And people generally go to psychologists when they don't sleep well. Nobody ever goes, sir, I'm sleeping very well. Can you do something so that I have a disturbed sleep? Have anybody gone to a doctor for that? You see, that state of this deep sleep, which rejuvenates everything, all that stuff. Let us, for the time being, talk that as this real causal body. And somewhere inside, very subtly, there is something called consciousness, which is the real I. You see, and depending on which philosophy you follow, some philosophers in Sanatana Dharma say this cup itself is that I. Some philosopher says, no, it is only clothing the I. The I is like the subtle. For example, see, this is a beautiful thing. What is inside this cup? You may say nothing. I would say, no, there is space inside the cup, you see. But then there is nothing. No, there is something called space inside. But that space is something which you can't perceive. It's something which you can't even notice until you force yourself to see the way in which I am telling you that the cup is not empty, it is filled with space. Then you realize, oh, there is something called space inside. Yes, that's also something tangible. And imagine consciousness to be as subtle as that space, you see. And that is what is the final, real I, is what our religion is saying. So now, when you have these three, we also answered a question which was about what happens when I give up my body. That was a very subtle, very, very deep question asked by one of your young team in Gopakutiram. So when I am living in the physical world, we have the outer court of physical body. Then I am living in the mental world. I have this inner, these two. And I also told you, when I'm dreaming, there is this incredible attachment to the body. It's very subtle. This dream body does all this activity, comes back to this physical body in the morning. Some of the yogis are able to even separate these two bodies at will because of their power, you see. And even if you have read the life story of Adi Shankara, Bhagavad Padar, he has done that also. So some of the yogis can do that. Some of the siddhas can do that. How do they do that is, there is this very subtle connection between this body and the subtle body. And those siddhas say that it is bound by a very silver cord, subtle cord. Don't imagine a rope. It's a subtle silver cord which forces it back until the karma has to be taken care. You see, till the karma is completely expensed, you can't escape this body. Just they have to come back. And after the karma is over for this body, then it snaps. So what is left behind is just the physical body, but this passes on. Just like how in the dream you are able to see with your eyes closed. You are able to feel, hot, cold, etc. with your skin not working at all. It's all done in this state of the mental body, isn't it? Likewise, when we drop this body, this also undergoes some experiences, not random and not given by God and all that. It is arranged as a system by God. And that system is what is called as a karma system, which means if there is papa, punya, etc., depending on that papa and punya, we undergo various experiences. And when we undergo various experiences, our Sanatana Dharma says, just like how you use the word dream world, you say that now. Where are you? I was in the dream world. Does such a world exist? Yes and no. Because when you have an experience, obviously it has to happen in some space, isn't it? Experience has to happen in some space. If it's not the physical space, we call it as an astral space, or you call it mental space. If you're happy with it, fine. So all these things in the dream, etc., happens in the mental space. And even after we drop the body, wherever we go, the higher worlds, etc., all that is also in that space. It's not physical. So don't imagine a physical planet and the physical beings there on the Marikadayas. But is it a true experience? It is. Why? Because if you hold the dream to be a true experience, this is also a true experience. If there is an experience, generally we call it the world. Because what we experience is called the world. You see, that which is seen, the word look, English you have the word look. Do you know where that word actually came from? Whether Google accepts or not, that word comes from lokyate, or look came from looking or seeing in Sanskritam called lokyate, and that which is seen is called loka. And even in Tamil, if you see the beauty, we use a synonym for world called par. And our Bharatiyar has sung a lovely song, Parukulle Nalla Naadu. Doesn't mean Ulla Paru Nalla Naadu illa. Parnale Ulagam. In the world, the lovely nation is India, now he is singing. So the word par is Vedantically meaning that which is seen is the world. Finish. If you see something, it is the world. And that which is seen is the world. So in the dream, I am seeing something. Now there is a world, dream world, you see. And so when I leave this body and I go around, there is, just like how there is a proper space, time, and a causation structure in this physical world, there is also a proper structure in the astral worlds, you see. And they go like that. And now they go with this chap, goes all around, you see, with all the inner world. Now this is left here. And this chap is now having these two, coats. He is going around. And when the right time comes, imagine a different cup out here. At the right time, this chap comes back with a new body. How is the body decided? How is it actually, what is it? How is it timed? That's the magic of the universe. Perfect, everything happens as per Kala, which is time. And depending on the karma of this guy going around, and depending on the nature of this guy, the new body comes to this. You see? It may be human, it may be animal, it may be fish, birds, or even plants. First case. Generally, from human to plant is a big step. Generally, it won't happen. It can happen also. Why? Because of the nature of this chap. If the nature is tremendously laziness, sloth, what is the ideal body you would want if you or I are very slothful? Na? I should not move anywhere. My food has to come where I stand. Na? Best way is be rooted to the ground. And your future is bright. And then your future comes from the sunshine. So you don't have to move at all. That is the Stavaram and Jangamam, we say. Stavaram, staying put. So for people who are very rare exceptions, none of the persons whom I have encountered in the past decades ever can fit that bill of becoming a tree in the next Janma. That is absolute slothful person chooses a tree by his nature. You see, we are all impelled by nature now. We are all impelled by nature. And nature is a little bit what we pick up, a little bit what we choose to, and a little bit decide by genetics. That's well proved by psychologists today. That what we are, our nature, can be influenced to a great degree. It can be nurtured by other influences. And 50% of our nature, approximately, these numbers are all atmospheric numbers, which means pulled out of thin air. You see, those numbers, about 50% of that is genetic. So approximately you take it. Nobody can give numbers to that because each of us are different, you see. So here, about 50% is embedded as our genetics. And genetics nale, please, because you are all Sanatana Dharmis, genetics is like, there used to be something called compact discs. CD or you see. And the generation Z dash may not even know that. So there is this little discs you have, which you put it into a small, player, and then it holds the actual film or the song in it. Genetics is this compact disc. Karma is the programming there. So it is not an accident that the disc has the holes burnt in the right places to create a lovely song. Can you ever imagine? If somebody is playing a shiny disc, they put it in the compact disc player, and suddenly a song beautifully comes out, what would you think? My goodness, something burnt the right holes, using a laser in the right places. Such a lovely song is coming, you never say. There is a design of a song which is burnt in the disc. Nobody denies the disc. And this is how I have grasped science, because I'm a lover of science. You see, whatever little I know. And I see no, absolutely no. I mean it. Not because I'm, doing religious lectures, but as a person, I'm telling you, I actually see no conflict if between true science and true religion. You see, don't bring some, rotten apples this side and that side. Then I can't help. But there, genetics, which you all should study, is like the compact disc or your memory stick. Okay. But the program in the memory stick, which actually translates into a song or a body or your mental makeup or brain, etc., that program is what we call as karma. Just like how a program cannot be found by breaking the disk or scanning the disk. Can you? Unless you are a programmer, you have no idea how the program got in there. You see? And you can't just say, I don't believe in programming, I don't believe in programmer. Accident. Every day, million accidents are happening all over the world. You see? So the disk is genetics. And it's fantastic that we found it. And our Sanatana Dharma talks about genetics, you see. And the genetics is the disk, but the design of the genetics is not an accident. It's not exactly a carbon copy of a mother and father. Of course, there is a lot of semblance there because that's the power of karma, making that person being born to such and such parents so that he can inherit or she can inherit the genetic makeup which fulfills this. This is your body. And genetics is actually fitted from this body of our vasanas, latent impressions, our past karma, and our nature. See, that's why we said last time, body is but an expression of our inner nature. And I saw some very mind-boggling case studies from respected scientists and research scholars, which I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you the origin also. You please do verify. If you find something fishy, let me know so that I can correct myself. But I have very little reason to, see any fishiness there. So here, that's how you go and get this new body out there, you see. And then this, if it's a human body, you have this physical body, you have this shirt, inner shirt, and the person inside, you see. And you have a chance, 40% chance to make an absolute transformation in your life because the name is a tongue twister. It has a lot of M, K, Z and all that stuff in that name. Yeah, I think the name of the book is called Happier or something like that. I'll find and let you know. In that, he or she has done a research that we are what we are, 50% genetics, as he said, 10% is nurture, your early childhood, etc. And that person puts about 40% in our power to alter a default destiny for us. And suppose we are machines, no chance of altering, right? And suppose we have all the freedom, no need to alter. We are in between these two. We are conditioned, we are extremely conditioned, yet we also have a possibility of escaping that conditioning, and that's what we call as freedom, what you call self-transcendence and self-actualization, etc. So here, the beauty is we have about 40% chance to make a difference for ourselves. So we are not a prisoner of our own past. We are not a prisoner of our own nurture or circumstances. We have 40%. Of course, we are constrained, no doubt about it. We are conditioned. If you had a better childhood, you stand a better chance. All that is true. If you had better genetic makeup, which means more, resistance to diseases, resistance to cancer, all that we know that genetics can impact. If I have all that, yes, that would have been ideal. But doesn't matter. Whatever we have been handed over is only 60% from today. From the day I was born to now, only 60%, 40% is in my hands, which means that's the beauty of human potential. And that's the reason we have Shastras. You see what I'm saying? If everything is predestined, why do you need a scripture to talk about what we need to do to progress? So in this level of our understanding, we have to understand 60% is predestined. External happenings may be predestined. Let it be. That this car need to come to me, this much salary raise need to come. Maybe it is predestined, I don't know. but how I see it. Thankfully, that's the human potential. I have the power to alter the way I see things. I have the power to bring in a growth mindset in me, irrespective of what happens around me. Even if somebody strictly religious and philosophical in Sanatana Dharma tells me that everything is predestined, it is only outside. You see, how I see my events, I can influence. See, that is the reason why we are discussing all that. That is the reason why there are so many, stuff like worship, meditation, mindfulness, puja, etc. If it is all uh, there, it means there is a leeway for us to improve ourselves, elevate ourselves, isn't it? So that's what this is. Let me go to the interesting part of it, which I heard, saw, and all that. So you have this inner shirt of this astral body, and then finally they say self-realization happens is when you realize our identity, when we realize it to consciousness. Now we are calling Jnani, like Ramana Bhagavan, or all these great Mahatmas which you can think of in India. All they did was clearly they realized, actually realized, Sakshat, Sakshat Paroksham Brahma, that they found out I am consciousness. All these are only codes. They are given to me. I will use them, but they don't bind me. They don't define me. Can I use that term? Because it's used a lot here. So forget what I have defines me. Even my body doesn't define me. I am far more subtler than that. Even my thought process don't define me in the actual sense. Consciousness is very different from even mind, intellect, and memory, all that stuff. And that's something which is mind-boggling. And that is something which is common to all mainstream spiritual traditions of Sanatana Dharma. They may differ on other details, but one thing they are clear, that which is consciousness is totally different from body or mind or buddhi or all those things, which is what the Western, or I won't say Western, why the whole world is struggling with. The non-Sanatana Dharmi researchers are struggling with, how do I completely surrender to the mind and yet get it all? They don't understand, because they are still trapped in the old model of consciousness is another function of mind, or consciousness is a function of brain. So that's even horrible. Na? I'm saying this body, and they are still thinking that which is consciousness here is a function of that. Na? And they are in the very first step, you say. For that, they need tremendous penance. And if they are lucky, maybe another $100 billion wasted in that. And finally, what we have been telling for 5 million, they have to come. This is what augurs with the experience of so many sages in India. And the beauty with Indian sages is they are not persecuted. Anywhere else, if you are a revolutionary sage, society persecutes them because India is meant to be spiritual. So here, you can even fool people with spirituality, you see. But in the West, you have to fool only with science. In Europe, possibly you have to fool it with some social angle, fashion angle. And this is the best, fragrance. Top stars use it. If you have that fragrance, the whole world will go behind you. Na? They are fooling you in a very fashionable way. You see? And generally here, science, there are positive pH, and then you have positive pH shampoo, positive pH food. I know my own friends who are, I don't know, maybe they are right, I don't know, but gullible to spend double the amount to buy a shampoo which has a positive pH. And then the society, when you know what is the dominant spirit of the society, you know how you can fool people, shows the dominant spirit. In India, everything works well if it's religious. So many times, if you have seen, even some day-to-day products are promoted by somebody who passes off as a religious person. You have seen that. Right? So that's how it works in India, because that is the the other side of it. But the real mainstream side is the spirit of India, spirituality. The moment you are spiritual, your background doesn't matter. If you are a realized soul, they'll never ask, well, what is your family? What religion did you follow? The moment you are realized, Nadi Moolam, Rishi Moolam, Pakadendruva. Don't look at the origin of a river, or don't look at an origin of an enlightened soul, because it doesn't really matter. They have now freed from all these three, which is what origins can tell you. They are completely free. That is the beauty of India. So here, such things are matter of common knowledge to a villager, you see. And the research scholars are struggling with that in this part of the world. How do I know? I've been listening to their discussions now. So here, finally, when we are in the state of pure consciousness, and generally there is one philosophy that says that you are free, etc. Now, this is what I came to know from some of these researches done by proper universities. And this was the case in point here is a wonderful conference hosted by University of Virginia. I think it's called UVA or something. And they have a department called Department of Perceptual Studies, DOPS in there. And it was a very interesting convention. I was just listening. Then there are thousands of inexplicable cases which augured very well with this model, but they are not willing to adopt this model. They are still struggling because they have to find balance, peer review from people who are extremely scientific reductionists, or rather physicalists. For them, physicalist na only that which is physical is true. Anything else, if you want to explain it with physical being or the physical frame as its reference. What a horrible trap to be caught in, isn't it? When the truth clearly shows that consciousness, in a truth, I mean religiously, that consciousness is totally different from physical, even mental, and even the latent impressions which you, let me use the word subconscious. The moonium kartilum consciousness, wherein our Sanatana Dharma boldly proclaimed minimum 6 million are back. And now they are not able to get rid of the idea that this physical frame is what creates consciousness, you see, which was a rejected hypothesis 8,000 years back in India. This was proposed by people called Vaiseshikas. This was proposed by people who are called Lokayatas. And it has been summarily rejected with proper rigor 6,000 years back, you see. And now, golden time. These are the proper postdoc research fellows. They are proper clinical psychologists. They are psychiatrists. And they are neurological study research scholars. All this in University of Virginia, UVA. And now they are slowly saying, I don't think physicalism can explain everything. Of course, it can explain all bodily ailments, etc. Even psychosomatic related stuff, they say it is the mind is actually result of brain only. They don't want to separate these two because they're not able to. And they are still struggling with that. And now slowly evidence is mounting. I'll explain you what these things are. Evidence is mounting, and it's very difficult to explain off these things which I wrote on the board with that my physical body creates the mind, creates the consciousness. You can't explain all these things, but these are all true. You see, how do you explain it? One, okay, you can say error. Two, let us, it's not in my band, throw it out, outlier. But when there is a mounting evidence on that, how can you actually not accept or at least find a model for it? This is what I heard. I hope I'm wrong. I have tremendous regard for a great scientist and a person who popularized science called Carl Sagan. Okay. And it seems there is a professor called Groff who actually was called by Carl Sagan to have discussions. And he told him that there is a lot of these things which cannot be explained by physicalism. How do you explain that? And he said, give me an example. He gave a few examples which happened. And he said, this couldn't happen. That's all. Carl Sagan. And it was a rude shock for me because my perception of Carl Sagan was different. And of course, people are people. He is not a sage. He's a good scientist. And everybody has their blind spots. I think that's how I managed to pacify myself, because I had tremendous, almost saw perfection in him, which maybe I shouldn't see. And so here, there are these things which cannot be explained. There are minimum 1,000 to 5,000 cases of all this, documented over 5 decades, you see. The case in point is reincarnation. There has been cases where Hollywood stars were reborn, it seems, as a child. And a 5-year-old child was telling the entire cast and things which happened in that Hollywood set. And the child said, take me to Hollywood. I want to go and see all that stuff like that around 10 years, 12 years back. And they managed to map some of the details which the child gave was against the records. But when they probed deep, the records were wrong. The child was right. And the child said, I was he. Huh? And now they were at a loss of words. Like that, many cases. Some of the cases were so surprising. And it sort of augured well with our theory. So I'm cherry picking them. My problem. So most of the cases which they have found out was because of the leaving of the body was sudden. And at times it was catastrophic. You see? And when it comes back to a new body, the scars were very fresh for the first 5, 6 years, 7 years, at times a little later also. So they were trying to say, maybe reincarnation is not the general rule, but when there is a catastrophic death, possibly they reincarnate, because all their study has been mainly pointing out to a catastrophic death or accidental death. Now it's very simple. It is not the question of only when you are accidentally dying, you reincarnate. Only the memory of reincarnation seems to carry forward when the death is sudden or catastrophic. Obviously, if you have a shock, you can't forget it. Na? So existence were perception were. That's why we separate these two in consciousness. Sat, chit. Chit na cognizance. Sat na existence. So when you get a data, you need to actually verify whether it is the cognizance of the data which is being influenced or the existence itself. For example, when I have a set of data which says, whenever there has been a catastrophic leaving the body, you see, and it follows through as whenever, mostly whatever studies I have done which pointed towards reincarnation, pointed towards a catastrophic death. Now the question is, does catastrophic leaving the body retain the memory more, or only when there is catastrophic death, there is a reincarnation? You have two theories there, na? Sat, Chit, rather than a. And now I think it's because to make sure that they don't sound really, out of the box, they are at least trying to get people to agree there is at least an exception to reincarnation. Then slowly they can say it's not an exception, it's a rule. You see, maybe that's what they do. Because he was very clear, he knew about law of karma, he was talking about it. And here, that's what is called reincarnation. Many cases. Some of the cases baffled me. It seems, I told you, na, the mind decides the body. Na? There was a person who was a warrior in a World War I or World War II. And the child which was born as a reincarnation of the person remembered all the details of Vietnam. See? And it looks that the child had some little problems on the right side. The ear was not fully developed and there were scars here. Okay. And they found out the person actually left his body because of a gunshot wound in the same place. And it was not one case. There were many cases like that. And they said, possibly, that's what he said, what we told a couple of weeks back, that possibly it is the mind which creates or designs or finds the right expression in the body. They're coming there. And how is it possible? The Sonal, the dark shirt out there, latent impressions. And we all know this. I don't know if you have seen it, but I have heard this, and I have heard it from very, legitimate source. Many times we can hypnotize a person and fool that person to think that it's a hot rod and touch only a normal rod. The person will start showing signs of burns there. That is how powerful mind is. And I believe this has been done publicly, experimented publicly, and people have seen this, it seems. You see, you please go into it. And that is the power of the mind over the body. So that's why in our Sanatana Dharma, each of the inner subtle one is always the cause. Remember, that's our universal rule. So the latent impressions which lead to genetics is the first cause. And the mind, which is the expression of all the latent impressions, is the midway cause. And the body is merely a fulfillment of these two causes. And so now the scientific community is slowly thinking maybe the mind exists apart from the physical frame and most of the time coexists with it. That anybody can. But which is the cause in Vardhapatela? When two things are together, you don't know which is the cause. Na? In that, OBE is called out-of-body experience. You see? And there are many cases which are actually studied on OBE, which is out-of-body experience, not the order of the British Empire. Okay, so out-of-the-body experience, and they found out that a person could actually see himself. And the case in point was a very interesting case. There was an operation going on, and it was a very complicated operation. The person was completely in anesthesia, and it seems at some point of the time, the person could actually see the operation room with his eyes closed, everything, and he saw the surgeon doing a flapping action. And when he came out of operation, he remembered that. He said, I could see myself being operated on, and I could see that the chief surgeon was flapping like an eagle and all that stuff. And the one who heard this wanted to verify. So he went to the hospital, met the surgeon, asked, and said, do you do any funny actions? He says, not at all. The next time when he observed the operation, what that person did was, generally when you are in an operation room, when you wear the gloves, you should not touch stuff which possibly are not aseptic or whatever, right? Sanitized. So they found out that this position of the body is the safest position for a surgeon because nobody would touch this, neither would he touch himself. So when he was trying to give instructions to make sure he does not accidentally touch something, he kept his hand and said, you do this, you do that, etc. He was doing that for about 2 minutes. And it appeared as if he was flapping his wings like that. Accurately, he told what all happened in that room. And so it may be a one-off case, but still you have to explain it now. And so they thought, slowly they are going to that state where maybe it is the mind which creates the body. Maybe it is the mind which gravitates towards this physical expression called the body. Just like how our intention expresses itself as the type of dress we wear. For people who have taste for Indian culture, they would want to wear Indian dresses, etc. Because that's what they want to clothe themselves on. For people who have taste for a Western culture, would want to wear a T-shirt and shorts, shoes and all that, because that's what they want to clothe on. Now the clothes were not the clothes were not forced on them. They, out of their nature, consciously or unconsciously, pick that clothes because that's their taste, that's their swabhavam, that's their nature. That's how their mind works. Likewise, the example of the clothes is given by Bhagavan in Bhagavad Gita. Our body is chirnani, it is like a cloth. And so it is the mind, which is very subtle, and the impressions which are transmitted in the physical world, here, the outermost physical, through genetics and through, ambience of nurture, etc. And then, of course, we also have, as humans, some independence, if I can use the word, 40%, to shape how we want to be. And the expression is by this genetics, etc. But decision. Why is this genetic makeup for this being? It is decided by the subtle body, the astral body, which takes that body as an expression. You see? And that's what Sanatana Dharma says. And people can say, I may not believe it, but they can't say it's not true. There is no much data to say it's not true. And for that, a great thinker whom I really like, called Bertrand Russell, he said he gave a small thought experiment called the saucer around the sun experiment. He said there is a saucer which is going around this solar system between Earth and Mars. No, you can't disprove it, right? But can I prove it? Now, it is so small that you cannot see it. He says, then mostly religion is like that in town. Bertrand Russell, being a radical reductionist, or whatever he is, I can't even comment on him. Such a great guy, and he's it's a genius. He's a literary genius, you see. And he says this is this tin cup thought experiment where he says there is a cup which is going around solar system. It's too small, you can't see. Then how can you verify it? Fortunately, these are the ones which helps us to say that we are not imagining a cup going around the solar system. How do you explain this? If you are a scientismist, then you don't want to even consider that. Why don't you consider it? Why don't you expand? And if there is a blind spot in science, why not say, yes, I don't know? Because we say a lot of I don't know in religion. We are very open people. Whenever we say, adrishtam, what happens after all these elements are slowly during pralayam, one by one? The earth gets completely inundated by water, water gets inundated by fire, fire gets inundated by air, air immediately merges into space. Apro, avidya. But how happens, what happens, I don't know. So we don't want to manufacture something. We don't know. Avidya. யாருக்கு தெரியறது அவித்யா எனக்கு அதுதான் கான்சியஸ்னஸ் அப்படின்னு வருவோம். So here this is what is out of body. ND is what is called as near death experience. ரொம்ப ஆச்சரியமா இருக்கு. And many of these cases they say is Asian origin, because generally Asian faiths have this reincarnation as a part of their psyche. So they are boldly reporting it. Because if you do something like that in the Western world, where generally reincarnation is not believed in, you are mocked at and you are sort of made as an odd person out, isn't it? But in a culture where reincarnation is accepted as part of life, the boldly declare. So he says a lot of these cases where from people of Asian cultures, because they have, and there was a question, why do you find more there? He says it's there everywhere, but these are the people who are forthcoming to tell this, because they don't find any illogicality in telling all this, is what he said. So that's the beauty of all this wonderful evidence, which is going to strengthen our basic principles of Sanatana Dharma, of karma, of reincarnation. These are the things which most of the mainstream religions in the world seem to take exception with. Even the scientific community is slowly gravitating towards that. In Boston, when I was just loitering around in the streets of Cambridge, there was a faith-based organization, not Hinduism, but a different faith. I think it was Christianity. And they were talking about karma and reincarnation within the realm of Christianity. You see? Because they have realized now, if scientific community somehow manages to understand, yes, reincarnation and karma is true, then you have a problem with a fundamental tenet, isn't it? Maybe possibly they were open to sort of other influences, I don't know. But I saw the pamphlet which talked about karma, which talked about reincarnation, and it was from a different denomination, it was from a different faith. And so that's where I think we are all gravitating towards. And this never changed. Whatever changed between Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada, Bhagavad Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, and all those great Acharya Purushas who were like incredible, geniuses in their own, is all about world. They are very clear. Between the relationship between individual soul and God, only they have a little differences of opinion slightly. Otherwise, the basic tenets, all this, everybody has. See, that is the beauty of the mounting evidence of this wonderful faith we all have been born to and we all have embraced. It is infused with, I guess, science which is far beyond the current times, you see. And the consciousness studies, people are taking it very seriously. And you need to explore this a bit. And I'm sure you'll find some very interesting stuff, because I'm sure some of you are going to do some research. Some of you may be in scientific research or medical research and all that. Don't discard Sanatana Dharma, because it can give you some points which others or other peers of yours may not have, which can help you, direct your research or direct your work in the most probably successful direction, you see. So I thought we'll just cap up on what we already saw last week, because it's very significant. And all our day-to-day activities are all built around this basic assumption. And that's why if you see in Tamil, unfortunately I don't have any Hindi equivalent song, we all sing lullaby. Our Swamiji used to say, even the lullaby sung in Tamil is extremely Vedantic, in line with all this. When a mother puts a baby to sleep in a cloth cradle, it's called duli, cloth cradle about it. It is tied below a tree or on a ceiling or something. And the mother is slowly trying to put the child to sleep. At times, vigorous rocking will happen. But the child needs that little bit of lull. And then the mother with her very average voice will also sing a lovely lullaby. Enna peruna? Generally, araro, ariraro, nu paduvom illaya. And the average voice enna naan dana adu solla. So when you actually swing that cloth cradle, she's actually singing a Vedantic song. Yar yaro, yar ivaro, yar yarai vandaro, yar yarai avaro. After this Janma, where is he going to go? Where has he come? Who is he? Why is he come to me? And the mother is pondering Vedantically with her child. Ararona, yar yaro, yar ivaro, yar yarai avaro. Abdine. That is how much ingrained, as I said, integrated. Even a normal folk song to put a baby to sleep has all these concepts there, saying that this child is just continuing its journey of spirituality. Now it has been entrusted to me. I have to give the right ambience for the child. And what the destiny of the child is, I don't know. But I will do my best as my mother. That song. So that is the beauty of our fundamental principle. And that's why most of our spiritual traditions or social practices have this perception or this precept rather as its underlying principle, which may not make sense if you just take a page out of this book. If you think only physical body is real, many of what we do won't make sense. But only when we understand the underlying precept, the underlying paradigm, in which all these rules, regulations, etc., our way of worship, etc., are all built up, then you understand the significance and beauty of the whole fabric. If you look at it from a very jaundiced eye of a different perspective, it won't make sense. But if you look at it with the right precept and the right background, then the whole thing is pretty grand, isn't it? And that is the reason why I thought we'll dwell on this, so that at least the parents and some elders in your family, the elderly children in the family, may understand the grandness of Sanatana and take it forward. Now, let me quickly talk about our worship, which I thought we'll start the discussion from today. Worship. The real genius of Hindu worship. There is a professor called Professor Venkat in Columbia University, I think, in New York. And I managed to find one of his short discussions, and then I spoke to him and we had a good communication. He is also from Chennai, by the way, and, Mylapore actually. And he was also, I was wanting him to address us today, but I guess he said, why don't you just take that idea and you can expand on it. And he explained Hindu worship very beautifully. I really liked it. And this idea is completely courtesy the Professor Venkat of Columbia University Chemical Engineering Department. He's in New York. And the beauty of that idea is just this. I will give you a small mathematical problem, right? And he gave an example. I bought some chocolates, okay? I gave half to my sister. She gave me back 2 of them. Now I have 7. Now, obviously, the question is, how many chocolates did I buy in the first place? Right? Any answers? Yeah. 5. Yes. Okay. I'll make it easy for you elders. And of course, for children, it's a cakewalk. It's 10, right? Now, how did you find that? How did you find that? You don't know how many I bought, isn't it? You have no idea how many I bought. But you knew what happened in between, and then you sort of backworked even though you don't know what you are working on until you get the answer. Let me make it a little algebraic. Okay. So this is, I bought some chocolates, I gave half to my sister, she gave me 2 black. So now number of chocolates is X. I have no idea. X means I don't know. Avidya da X. You see, I don't know. Then X. But then X by 2 plus 2 equals 7. Right? So X equals 10. Now I know number of chocolates. That which was unknown, suddenly has become known to me. And see the beauty here. This was, I don't know stage. Huh? I have no idea stage. And this is, I actually know stage. Right? And X, by definition of algebra, is that which is unknown. I don't know. But then see what all we do with that X. தெரியாத விஷயத்துக்கு ஒரு அடியில by 2 போட்டு we do mathematical operations on things which we don't know at all. We do addition and then we give an equation and then we put a number out there. And then if somebody asks, hey, what are you doing? I'm doing equation. Do you know what X is? I don't know. Then why are you doing all this? See? But then that which I don't know, I do a lot of operations on it, like division, addition, with whatever data I have. And guess what? In spite of me not knowing what I am doing out here, because I do all these operations on that unknown called X, I end up actually knowing that X. And Professor Venkat very beautifully told me, this is exactly how we do worship. When we start the worship, I have no idea who that Krishna is, you see. But I clothe him, I do Prabodhanam, I do Dolatsavam, I do all the puja, I do all these things. And finally, because of all these operations, I end up actually knowing him. And just like how algebra starts with an unknown, but you just don't say, I don't know. I don't know. I hope you don't say, I don't care. But anyway, when you don't know, and that's the beauty. You don't know. And you do all the operations of algebra on that which you don't know, which magically results in you knowing it exactly. Likewise, this is what is called Shraddha in Sanatana Dharma. If you don't do this operation, you can never know X. All the life you'll be saying, I have no idea how many chocolates I got. I don't know X. I don't know. But you know some things now. You know these operations make sense for you to know X one day with the faith that I shall find X by doing this algebraic operations on that unknown. I end up knowing that unknown. Adhe mari adokshajan abdina unknown artham. That Bhagavan, which is beyond the senses, obviously unknown, I have an image of Bhagavan, which I see as Bhagavan. I clothe him, I pray to him, I sing for him, I dance for him, I do archana on him, I do everything for him. And what happens is, this is an insentient unknown. When we do all the operations, that which I start as unknown reveals itself to me as known. That is how worship works. That's how puja works. That's how dhyana works. That's how japa works. That's how nama works. I always start with an X, unknown. I do operations on it. I do a lot of interesting things to it. And guess what? Because of those, I end up actually knowing it. But if I have said, sir, I don't want to do algebra until I know X, I don't want to start algebra. No, algebra if you know X, why you need algebra? You need algebra only because you have to start with an unknown and come to a known. The intermediate step is called Shraddha. And our Bhagavad Gita says, Shraddhavan labate jnanam. If you want to know the jnana of X, teacher solra alla. Suppose you are a very bright child, extremely bright child. And the teacher says, I don't know how many chocolates. Let me call it X. Why X? Why not Y? Okay, why? You'll be a very brilliant kindergarten kid for 50 years. Not even a single movement towards the truth will happen. So when a teacher says, call it X, I bet none of us ask that question. We understand the teacher is going to show me the real value of X. Whether you call it X or Y doesn't matter now, finally. I need to know it is 10, finally. You see? And so I start with an unknown. And then my teacher, my guru, tells me to do all these operations with it. With me, unknown. But the teacher knows now. If you do these operations, you will come to 10. She knows or he knows right from start, it is 10. But we need to figure it out now. So here we do all the operations. Idhukku dhaan worship nu per. Idhukku dhaan upasana nu per. Upasana enna artham theriyuma? Going near to the truth. So once I don't know the truth, so how can I go near the truth? Can you? I don't know. How can I go near it? So there is a way. Have faith, Shraddha. Do these operations, and then you will be the truth in the end. And that's intermediate step is what is called as worship. So worship does not mean blind faith. Worship means faith in the system of algebra, which is going to help me find out that which is unknown. Likewise, faith in the system of Sanatana Dharma, which helps me to find that which I start as unknown, should reveal itself to me as known. And then we call it as a realization. And you write QED, right? That is what is worship. You see the beauty of our system. Instead of just constantly saying it's abstract, now when will I realize? So start with, yeah, I don't know. Then a guru comes and says, do all these operations of the unknown. Guru has it known, but I don't know. So when a guru tells me do this operation, and you out of Shraddha does the operation, do the operation, then you will also understand the same way a guru has understood. In that knowledge, guru gives his knowledge to us. And that is what is called realization. Whether you call it self-realization or God realization, doesn't matter. But important step is this step, which we do out of Shraddha only. Na? Why should I write X? I don't know X. How can you do operations on something which you don't know at all? But you know it, that when I actually do the operations on that which I don't know, like division and addition and equal and all that stuff, equivalence, I know that I can come to know of it. This step between X and this operation is a big leap. It is not just blind faith. It is a trust in a system so that I can understand and realize it in future. You see, not die with belief. It's good to start with belief. But before we die, we should have realized that our end is not belief. Our end is realization. See it for yourself. But for us to see the truth for ourselves, we need to take that important intermediate step. And that taking the step from number of chocolates equals X, I don't know, to X by 2 plus 2 equals 7. That step A to step B is what we call Shraddha. And if we don't have Shraddha, we'll all, finally end up or end without any extra knowledge. And all this continues until I take that intermediate step, the cycle will continue. You see. And when we go to a so-called satsang and a realized master, he tells us that it is unknown. I know that you don't know. Do these operations. How will it work? Do it and see. Sollitan parentra maridha. Do it and see, then you will get the answer. And then you get this tremendous trust in the system. And you are now ready to tell others, hey, it's a lovely system called algebra. You see. And it actually helps you to figure out the unknown by taking an intermediate step of performing operations, of mathematical operations on an unknown, which doesn't sound very logical to start with. That's the beauty and genius of algebra. And that is the beauty and genius of Sanatana Dharma. Krishna, no, yaarne terliye. Wow, kada kelu. One operation. Kirtanam, one operation. Do the, contemplation, one operation. Do worship. Pray before him. And knowing very well that I'm an ignorant person, I don't know who you are. But once you do all these operations as directed by a proper structure and a proper system, you actually end up figuring out the unknown. And that is what is called jnanam. And that's when you don't need all these three at all. You are in the state of joy. You are in the state of love. You see, that's the beauty of worship. And depending on systems of algebra, some people will call it Y. You see. So some people say Saivam. Finally, they will come to the answer. Y potana the answer. Some people say Sri Vaishnavam Panatum, Vaishnavam Panatum, Saktam Panatum, Kaumaram Panatum, Ganapatyam Panatum, Adityam Panatum. You see? Those are the paths shown, and as many paths, as many faiths. But you do this operation as per that system. Don't mix systems. Once you get Y potang X potel, you see, you will be confused. And so these are the lovely paths, whether you call it Raja Yoga, or whether you call it Bhakti Yoga, or Karma Yoga, or jnana vichara. Adalla various methods. That's why a guru says, when I am trying to do in this method, suddenly don't square it, subtract it, divide all by 2. You take a system, follow this. Raja Yoga, na Raja Yoga. Finish. It has its own way of deriving the same result. Suppose you are in Bhakti Yoga, do this operation. Operation. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaran. Oh, if you do a Jnana Margana, that's an operation. What is it? It is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasitam. Right? Karma Yoga na Phalatyagam, Ishwararpanam. So once you are in a system, follow that system. You can't put Fourier transform in the first, Laplace transform the second step. Formless up, you see. And that is why we started in the first week of lucid answers, that the system may differ, the answer never differs. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. But you can't take first step in a system, second step in a different system, third step in a different system. Now you are creating a new system. All horse system. So here the whole point is, depending on the system of our spiritual tradition, follow the steps. And no system is superior, inferior. All leads to the final goal is same, which is not having these 3 cups at all. Generally, Tamil Nadu cup vaangiraduna fail na irukum. You see, evlo cup vaangina appadina evlo subject la fail na irukum. So adanaala 3 cup vaangama pass aayi, let us realize that is what is the final. So here, I really love this example, and I was very moved to see how he has other beauty of our Sanatana Dharma. He was able to relate a so-called pure science with what we do. And our integrated approach is natural for people who have Bharatiya origins, because we are brought up that way. We are more generalists, actually. We know a little bit of a lot of things. And now when you are here, you can actually do both. You can do deep dive and also not lose your general overview and the perspective of things, and you can be a person to make a difference in future. Okay? And I thought that's what I have for this. I think I have answered most of your questions. If there are any more, we'll see next week. Otherwise, we'll quickly do a summary of all we saw about Sanatana Dharma, and we'll conclude the question answer stuff there. And I've heard a lot from you. Many of you wrote to me offline and all that. I'm very happy and enthused and encouraged by your response to this, because Bhagavatamna, I don't need feedback. But this we are doing only for you. So feedback was something which I really look forward to see how much was useful. And many of you offered a lovely feedback, so I'm continuing this. And for Gita or Bhagavatam or Upanishad or Bhakta Vijayamla, personally, I'm happy just doing it. But this is something done for an audience, because you ask the questions I'm trying to explain. I'm really very grateful for your feedback, and I thought I will add a little more value to what we are discussing as a family together. And of course, the whole idea of thinking about it was joyful. And each time I think about our Sanatana Dharma, I feel swelling of pride, whether it is right or wrong, I don't know, but I do swell up in pride to look at this wonderful, wonderful Dharma, which is unparalleled, which is deep, wide, and broad in the truest sense. Sadguru Maharaj ki Kayena vacha manasendriyerva buddhyatmana va prakrite swabhavat karomi adyat sakalam parasmi Narayanayeti samarpayami. Sadguru Maharaj ki Radhe Radhe.